Raz, dva. Dámy a pánové.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second panel of this conference. The second panel is called Central Europe, How to Get on Without Russian Gas. The first panel already discussed this topic, so I'm really glad to hear different opinions and to approach this topic from a different point of view. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jan Palička and I'm from the info.cz website. My guests at the first panel and the second panel are Václav Bartuška, the Special Envoy for Energy Security Issues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he has been at this post since 2006. In 2010 to 14, he was Special Envoy for the construction of the nuclear power plant in the Czech Republic, and he is a professor at several universities. Then we have Professor Przemysław Żurawski-Belgrajewski. He is an advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland. He's the chairman of the Security and Defense Council of the President of the Republic of Poland. He teaches at the University at Łódź, and his topics are modern history and current affairs. He also worked at the Ministry of Defense and as an advisor at the European Parliament for Eastern issues. Then to my left, then we have Mr. Mateusz Berger. He is the Secretary of State at the Chancellery of the Prime Minister, Government Plenipotentiary for Strategic Energy Infrastructure. He worked at the Ministry for Regional Development in Poland. He worked for the company Plot and the Agency for the Industry Development. He is a lawyer. He also graduated from financial management. And then Mr. Jarosław Kurfürst. He is a Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic, an ambassador, politician, and he also worked as a special envoy for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the Eastern countries, and he was an ambassador in Belgium. His topics are Russia. He wrote a book about Russian geopolitics. And he also collaborated on a book talking about international affairs. So I hope that all four panelists would be able to give us their own point of view on current crisis, current situation, which is a key issue in the Czech Republic, but also in Poland and in the rest of Europe. So I would like you to open the discussion. So, Mr. Bartuška, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will be quick. Central Europe and gas are very interconnected topics. We have to handle this winter and future winters as well. We cannot have the situation that everybody will be cold this winter and then we would come to Russia and plead for gas. So we have to find different solution. there are specific topics to be discussed. So the first one is how can we make our words and promises into actions? How to transform them into actions and how to do things, how to cooperate, how to work at the political level as well. We do not have a gas pipeline to Poland. There is just an old small connection, so we would like to connect with Poland. This is not really working, has not really been working yet. And I have to say that on the 5th of May, our Prime Minister went to Berlin. I went there a week after him. And then with other colleagues, we were able to sign a contract on a LNG terminal in Wallonia and in Netherlands. So it was nice to see concrete things to happen after our negotiations. So maybe after our negotiations with Poland, we will also see concrete, specific things happening, concrete projects being realized. So unfortunately, up until now, there is no real connection with Poland via pipelines. Second thing is new infrastructure. We talk about STOR 2, and we are bounded with norms and regulations. But I can give you an example of Netherlands. Their LNG terminal was opened in September this year, and it was prepared earlier this year. So it was built really quickly, but yes, there are still things to be validated and controlled within 8 to 10 years. But the infrastructure in the Czech Republic takes many, many years to be prepared, and that's why we cannot react so quickly as they reacted in Netherlands. Our procedures are so long and so complex that we cannot really react quickly. So if we did something to facilitate our procedures, it would be easier for us to react on current crisis. So yes, with Poland we have a specific project, STOR 2, that links us. And there are other things binding and we do not want something really specific. Those are just projects similar to those that happen in Germany and Netherlands, but we have to react quickly. Now, please, Professor Przemysl Żurawski-Welkrajewski, your point of view. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really glad and honored to be here in Prague for the second time in a short period of time. I'm really glad we talk here about the Central Europe and more specifically the position of the Czech Republic and Poland. During the previous panel, it was already said that we should first talk about reality and then about our propositions. So I myself would like to emphasize that we cannot exist in a political vacuum, because there are other players in our game. So to see the whole checkerboard, the whole playfield and all the actors, we have to admit that there are two or maybe 2.5 ways of playing in the EU. There is a German model, a German play, that is based on fossil fuels and renewable energies. And energy produced in Germany from solar power plants or wind power plants. Germany doesn't want to limit their production and export of their power. In the first panel, we heard about an imbalance and about France's approach based on nuclear energy, which is the other way of playing our game. And I said there was 2.5 ways of playing. So the half is Italy with solar energy, geothermal energy. So those are there. They have many renewable resources, and these are the ways to keep energy security of Europe. We could create our own possibilities and reduce Germany's profit, because we would want them to sell us their wind technology, wind power plants technology and resources. And this brings us to the time factor. German energy policy evolved under key events in history. The first one was the nuclear catastrophe in Fukushima. But Germany is not threatened by tsunami or earthquake. Even though German propaganda used the threat of the nuclear disaster from Fukushima, and Germany closed their nuclear power plants, and they converted their energy sector towards renewable resources. German industry doesn't really like current approach, and it is actually the basis of their gameplay. It is also a matter of voters, of the electorate in Germany and Poland. The EU is really asymmetric. Countries are not equal. The decisions have to be taken unanimously, so finally some countries have to obey. There is a southern region of Europe that could be compared to the central region of Europe. we would have to face the situation when German voters, German electorate, under the influence of climate change, votes for certain parties. German Green Party is very strong. And we have to explain our reality to our Western allies. We have to explain our interests and interests of our electorate, our people. We have to explain what our people want. And there are voters believing in different opinions. And in Germany, it is important to gain the majority of electorate.
I know the introduction has to be brief, but I would like to stress that our goal is first and foremost to build our own abilities. We have a good tool, which is the Tri-C, and we have to develop that as soon as possible. And I think that from the point of view of Czech-Polish cooperation, it is very, very important to break the barrier of the Sudet region, and we have to be cooperating within the area of the Baltic, Czech and Polish triangle. We have to be more flexible and develop our flexible market with gas, which is similar to the oil market. And two remarks. In 2016, the US changed their policy concerning primary resources. They become an exporter, and that lowered their interest in the Middle East region. We are also facing consequences of the Arab Spring, and we are going to have to face that, and I'm going to talk more about that later. Thank you so much, Professor, for your beginning words, and the floor is Mr. Berger's. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and in such an important time as well. As we say in Poland, we like to live in interesting times, and I think this time is very interesting, but first and foremost, it is terrifying. We are talking about Central Europe and about the dependency on Russian gas. But the Russian gas is not an issue for Poland. Beginning this April, Poland no longer has business relations with Russia. The LNG is more important, and we want to increase its capacities to be able to use it more. And my predecessor, Peter Najemski, has worked so much on that, and we have a pipeline coming from Norway. And these two things have helped Poland to exchange the Russian gas. We do not have to, we shouldn't fear to say that we are living in times of war. Fortunately, the classic offline war isn't here in our region, but the hybrid war is very much present. And I think we can all feel that. The prices of everything are rising. In the same fashion that everybody became an expert on COVID in spring 2020, everybody is now an expert on energy. We took everything we had for granted. It is normal to have heating and light in your home, but that changed. In times of war, we have to deal with reality very differently than in the times of peace. In times of peace, we do not really focus on the war budget, but we have to prepare for war. And now we have to prepare as well. We do not want the same thing that's happening in Ukraine to happen to us. And that's why we have to prepare. And we are victims of energy war. We shouldn't spare expenses, and we should diversify our infrastructures. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Berger. And the floor is the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jaroslav Kurfürst. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very glad that we can be here because this is the right topic with the right partners at the right time. The Czech presidency doesn't have a larger issue than the war in Ukraine and the energy crisis. It is a crucial topic. There is an informal session of the European Council for Energy. And that is a very big deal because this is the third emergency session. We have many challenges, and these challenges are very much connected to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. I want to paraphrase General Paulus from 1918 in Kremlin. He said something along the lines of, when you go to the southern Caucasus, build business relations that would create dependencies in the locals that they hadn't had before. You have to install imbalance. They shouldn't develop relationships with other regional players, making them think that we are omnipotent. I think that this is a very important quotation, and it is what we should do in the energy sector. When we look back at the last 30 years, there are three big transformative moments. First is, of course, the year 1989 and the integration towards the West. A lot has been done for the Central Europe. Big projects, interlinking our infrastructure with the Western ones, etc. The second one was between 2006 and 2009, when Russians have started to weaponize their energy sector. I think that the Russians have shot themselves in the leg, but in their left leg, because the EU has implemented every strategy in their third energy packet. They try to do anything possible to salvage and to right the situation. They have done so much work that in the end, the loser of this geopolitical game was Russia. Today, we are living through the third transformative moment. This moment has slowed down many processes in the EU that have influenced the energy in the Central Europe. I'm talking here about the quick energy transformation. The situation we have found ourselves in nowadays is much more favorable towards the nuclear power because it is a crucial resource in the energy mix and not only for the Central Europe. We are much more pragmatic towards coal and many other primary sources of energy. We need them today, and people are coming to realize it more and more. It also means the quickening of the transformation towards the renewable sources. It is a big opportunity. There's a big pressure for new infrastructure, including LNG, and we have to take transformative measures within the EU. And now I want to talk about the interesting processes that are happening inside the EU. Of course, the package Repower Europe, which lessens the dependency on Russia by 2030. There's a regional platform that was put into place last year. There's the mechanism of solidarity and saving energy prices, and which is very good for every stakeholder, and the Czech presidency has been working very hard on that. The whole transformation of energy, including the infrastructure development. There are many investments into science, the greatest allocation of capital in history, the capping of prices that should prevent the social impact. There are many more to come that are all well known to the public. I have mentioned the infrastructure. There is the interlinking between Slovakia and Poland, the cooperation with Central Europe and Norway, which is crucial to our region. There are solidarity mechanisms and other long-term solutions like a redesigning of the market. It is interesting that it was in 2009 during our first Czech presidency where the market was designed, and it is now during our second presidency that is going to be redesigned and later finished in 2023. We could talk about all the other aspects like the nuclear, etc., but I don't want to dwell so much in details. But I want to say one last thing, and that is to talk about the Tri-Sea. I want to inform you about this. Inside the Czech state administration, the agenda is now in the hands of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and no longer in the Ministry of Transport. We will add new crucial projects to the Tri-Sea big project. And there are many, many more things to come and more stakeholders that are going to be involved in the situation. I think that Stork 2 is, of course, one key aspect of this agenda. We are also going to increase the capacity of the pipeline TAL, and we cannot omit LNG towards Lublin and Germany, and we want to reinforce the north-south axis. And that's not only Stork, but many other projects that link us to Poland, show us the brilliant Czech-Polish relations, and I'm very glad that we can hold these discussions about this. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kurfürst. Do any of you panelists want to react to anything that has been said? There aren't really any comments. I have a topic in mind, and it is very specific. And thank you for the fascinating story about our history. And it has showed us that not much has changed in the mentality of the Russians in the last 100, 200 years. In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there was a conference about the influence of misinformation. What do you think that we can see as consequences for the energy sector? I mean the consequences of the misinformation and of the hybrid war. All the debaters on social media are now experts on the energy sector, of course, as we said. But what are the real tangible consequences, and what are our possibilities in the Czech-Polish cooperation to fight that and to fight misinformation?
Thank you for that question. I think that the energy sector is very wide. Some things are given facts and some things are dealt by experts, companies, and there are not many myths and disinformation about them. But there are issues that can fall to misinformation. I talk about different theories about the role of the EU, all the solidarity mechanisms, and so on. Some misinformation try to divide Europe and alienate us towards Germany, for example, with Germany. So, in the EU and in the Czech Republic, we have to fact check and we have to debunk the myths. And the most important myths are myths about Brussels and the big players. And this is the biggest threat, but maybe I'm wrong, there's something different. Thank you for the answer. Does any of you want to react? Yeah, Professor Żurawski-Belgrajewski. Yeah, I would like to react in two dimensions or two topics. The first topic is the Tri-Sea and the second one, a Russian hybrid war. As for the Tri-Sea, there are specific tasks for us to do with the Czech Republic. There are specific projects. I think it is important to have solidarity with each other because we use the coal energy. Even though there were some disagreements in this field, it's not that long time ago. And it is a thing that might be used against us because the coal energy might be problematic from the EU's point of view. And we are going to need the coal energy in the future. The next thing is the support of the nuclear energy. Our partner is France, and Poland is going to use American or Korean technologies, probably not really French technologies, but we want to cooperate with France on the matter of keeping nuclear as a green energy. The Czech Republic is more advanced in this issue, and this facilitates the situation for us because we wouldn't be the only ones to deal with the issue. we wouldn't be the only ones to choose companies to build nuclear power plants terminals for us. So I think this is our common issue. As for the Tri-Sea, I have one remark. As you probably know, Tri-Sea is a project that has 3 infrastructural dimensions. It is a road and water infrastructure and energetic infrastructure. And the energetic infrastructure is now the most important one. It consists of linking the LNG Świnoujście terminal, Croatian terminal, and a terminal in Romania. And the triangular connection is important because if one part is blocked, the other two could ensure the supply. So the connection between the Baltic and Adriatic Sea is really important, and we cannot do it without the cooperation of the Czech Republic. This cooperation also means that we would get rid of our dependency of the West-East pipeline or the West-East infrastructure. Up until 2014, 70% of our gas went through Poland and was redistributed to Austria and Hungary. We do not want to really extend the capacity of gas, even though this was the primary, this used to be the opinion of Germany and Russia, but we do not want to extend actually the capacity. We want to change the way of supply. We want to change the infrastructure. The fights at Ukraine, in Ukraine, caused disruptions in supply. So we wanted to create another way of supply. We had the Nord Stream, but Russia destroyed part of it. So even though this pipeline worked for a long time, it doesn't work anymore. So this infrastructure is useless now. So the Tri-Sea infrastructure is really important for us. There is an investment fund for the Tri-Sea. There are investments from Czechia, Poland and Romania. Even though the Czech investments have not been approved yet. But we hope that the Czech Republic will get involved in this investment fund too. We ourselves want to get the finances. We want to attract investment partners to this project. We want it to function similarly to European funds because it is important for us. We want commercial investors also to invest in the project, and we would like Americans to contribute. They promised us 30% of the budget. So the more we put in, the more investment from the USA we will get. The investors are Poland, Bulgaria, Romania. Those countries paid according to their size. Also Lithuania added something, Latvia. The Czech Republic is the second largest country of the V4, has a good economy, so the Czech Republic will be really influential in this project, in this investment fund. So I think that the use of this investment fund in the infrastructure is really, really important. My last remark is a historical remark. General Paskiewicz letter from 1853 is a really important one. It doesn't concern commerce, but ideological war. It talks about building insecurities, forcing people against each other, forcing parties against each other, and creating misunderstanding. That is something we should consider and we should fight. It's not something Putin does and Putin invented. It has been done since the 1850s. Thank you very much for your contribution to the debate, and with a historical point of view. We can see that history repeats itself. Mr. Bartuška would like to react, so please. Just a few words to the topic of coal. I went to the informal Council for Energetics, and there was nothing said against the coal. So don't talk about coal now. This is not our current fight. No one said anything about coal. No one is against coal now. We have more important issues to deal with. Yeah, thank you. This is a very current, fact-checked remark. Maybe Mr. Berger, I would like your remarks on what has been said. And the pipelines, there's Druzhba accident, which seemed to be a sabotage. So how to secure the infrastructure? How can we secure the pipelines so that people wouldn't have to be afraid of sabotage or manipulation? Can we do it? Do we have the tools? Thank you for that question. Yes, there was this accident yesterday at night, and it concerns parts of the Druzhba pipeline. But I, as a representative of Poland, don't know anything about sabotage. It shouldn't be like the accident at Nord Stream 2, so don't worry, there was a leakage, we lost pressure in the pipeline. there are no indications of it being on purpose. There are firefighters solving the situation. We have experienced something like that in the past, so we know how to deal with it. We clean the pipeline and the territory, and it's fine, even though we have to investigate this accident. We have to investigate the operator and all the stakeholders. Now we have to store the oil and investigate the pipeline. And we will, of course, publish our findings. But as I said, this accident was in the part of the pipeline where oil is coming. And when we find something new, when we investigate the whole accident, we will inform everyone.
To come back to the aspect of sabotage, as the professor rightfully pointed out, there were 3 sections damaged, but I don't think this was very random. It was thought out. It was purposeful. It is a crazy world. The new investments that overcome the borders of each countries, for example, the Baltic Pipe, there is a 30-kilometer section that's outside any national territory. It's in international waters. Other sections of this pipeline are in the EU, but it is a very fragile infrastructure. It is a pipe with 20 centimeters of cement. It's protective, but nobody assumed that we should protect this type of infrastructure when it was a time of peace. It was about preserving our environment. We weren't really thinking about the protection against terrorist attacks or attacks of war when it comes to the hybrid war we are living right now. But we see that our future investments have to be conducted in a way so as to lower the risks of such attacks. But we have to realize that when the infrastructure is near to the border with another country, it must be protected physically. And the latest event has given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much for explaining and for making us calm. But I have another question for you. Because we have to look to the future, to the technologies of future that will help us cut our dependency on Russia. When it comes to the nuclear in Poland, I have one question. Outside of building a conventional nuclear power plant, are you also thinking about smaller modular reactors in Poland that could be a basis of our further cooperation, because we are currently working on a modular reactor in the Czech Republic right now. Can you talk a little bit about that, please? Of course, thank you so much. We, as a Polish government, are faced with a crucial decision when it comes to choosing a strategic partner in building a nuclear power plant. Our plan is to have 6 to 9 gigawatts of power, so that means nuclear blocks. We are talking a lot about new technologies, like the SMR technologies. And there are talks about cooperations with big multinational partnerships, and they are very interested in developing these technologies in Poland. We have to be favorable towards that, and not only on the Polish level, but also on the European level. In the taxonomy of the EU, there is nuclear energy now, we all know that, but we have to secure that on our national level as well, so that nuclear energy isn't facing the same scrutiny as coal is. But we have to develop the whole infrastructure, the whole area. And I'm talking specifically about the academic area. And we are going to be holding many conferences in Poland. And we are glad that our representative was invited to such a meeting in the Czech Republic. Because we have to talk about the nuclear in a favorable light. We see the reactions of the Polish society, and the approach is currently very positive. And the fear of the nuclear is on the down low right now. And that's the fear that Germany used as an excuse. We try to educate our society so they're not scared of the nuclear. I also talk about the right regulations and support mechanisms to support nuclear energy. These small modular reactors are not a reality, but we will have to have them in the next 6 to 7 years. And I'm glad that the Czech Republic has decided to install the first prototypes. First come, first serve. They will have more experiences and they will be able to increase their competitiveness. So kudos to you, Czech Republic. The modular reactors are actually very favorable because they are able to be very flexible. And they are much easier to build than the classic nuclear power plants. We see many chances in the PPA contracts. There are many options for local companies to cooperate in that area. I think that it would be good to discuss how to support, how to give support, how to set up the systems of support, and I hope that this is our future. Thank you so much for that answer. Are there any other reactions or remarks from the panel? Mr. Kurfist. I was thinking about the hybrid threats, but I would like to add Nord Stream 1 and 2 to that. It is an operation that Russians claim to not have anything to do with, but that's not the reality. We are talking about the attacks and their significance. And I have 5 things that are significant. First, it is a symbol. It is a symbol of burning a bridge between Russia and Europe, Russia and Germany. Some thought it was an energetic umbilical cord, but it is not that anymore. Second, it is revenge. Russia is always vengeful. Third, it is a warning that the critical infrastructure in the Euro-Atlantic area is a target of Russia. Fourth, it is an economic step. Russia has been able to increase the prices of gas in short term. And five, it is a psychological step. Winter is coming, and the Europeans see that it is a very important part of life, and that we do not have the Russian resources anymore. Thank you. Thank you so much for summarizing that. And I have a question for the professor. In one of your interviews in the Polish media, you were talking about that the internal collapse of Russia is the only thing that can put an end to the war in Ukraine. Do you think that that is tangible in the next or near future? Do you think that it's going to be possible to renew our commercial relationships with Russia because they are going to have gas? Do you think that that's possible? Or are we able to be completely independent? I will answer the last question first. Yes, of course, we are able to do that. We are going to be able to do that. Poland is no longer dependent on Russian energy. We've always known that it is an important step, and we succeeded. I want to talk about the hybrid war. It is the continuation of the historic war. The Russians used Nord Stream and pipelines interchangeably. The Danish, who were against Nord Stream, had doubts about the Russia in general, but that's a story for another day. Let's go back to your question. What is Russia going to look like after the war? The war is not going to end unless there is a collapse of the regime in Russia. I don't think that the Russian government or the Russian regime is going to collapse anytime soon. But I think that if it doesn't collapse, the war is going to go on. Putin is not gonna end the war. He knows that he isn't going to retire peacefully, but rather die. And that's why he is willing to sacrifice the lives of his citizens. We can take the example of Chechnya. They do not have any limits. They are able to sacrifice as many citizens as it takes to be the winner. The Russian colonial mindset is still a reality. If Putin can choose to either give his life or for his servants to give their lives, and that's a word I'm not using lightly, he will choose the lives of his servants. So the war will not end unless there is an internal collapse. But I'm not saying that that is going to come anytime soon. I don't think that, but Russia has chosen its path. In 1914, 1915, the army of Tsar who supported the Tsar and his people has suffered a great loss in the war. But this army has renewed itself even though the soldiers weren't happy with their reality, but Russia doesn't care. Putin doesn't care. He doesn't care about the well-being of its citizens. The process has already started, but I don't think it's going to be quick. But what I'm saying is that Russia, through the decision of its elite, under pressure of the West, isn't going to put an end to the war. But I think it is going to be a big, giant collapse. It is hard to say when that will come, but not even Ukraine is going to put an end to the war, because to give up would create a compromise. They know what happens in the territories that are under occupation. They know that if they give up their territory, it is not going to solve anything on the geopolitical field. We know it very well from our Polish history. It is not only Katyn, it has always been the case since 1503. Each Russian invasion is the same. The model is the same. They always want to get rid of the elite of a given territory. And the Ukrainians know that, and that's why they aren't giving up.
But I think in our energy topic we should stress one other threat. You all know the situation of Zagrożenia nuclear power plant. If there was a catastrophe, it would be politically used against the nuclear development in Europe. So I think that that's the reason why Putin could do that, could attack the power plant. So I assume that we should prepare the public to face this challenge, to face this situation, and we have to be prepared if something like that happened. I think it is a crucial thing in the war. Thank you. And one more question to Mr. Bartuška. I would like to go back to the opening word of Jan Skopeček when he said that there was an imbalance in the demand and supply. This week you said in an interview that the imbalance was already created, and the price of production electricity and the price that is paid on the market is different, and it cannot be easily explained to the public anymore. So let's not use these narratives. How to avoid it? How can we talk about it differently and do not fall under the manipulation? How to explain to the people that electricity at the production is cheap? Don't you have an easier question for me? Unfortunately, no. Let's assume that about 50% of public doesn't agree with the government and thinks that government doesn't do the right things and they do not understand what government does. And this also concerns the prices of energy and gas. But I am glad that the government agreed on keeping the prices, even though it was not easy. I have to get back to the council meeting, but I will answer your question. Yes, we saw speculative purchases on the energy market. The electricity cost 700 euro. In 3 days it cost 1,000 euros, and then the price fell again. There are many speculative purchases in the market, and when the market notices something like that, it is regulated and dealt with. On 9/11, the market collapsed, and we saw regulations after this event. So during the times of crisis, the markets and stock exchanges fell under speculative purchases. It is obvious, but we have to react. The governments have to react. They have to detect those speculative purchases and adopt regulatory measures. When we do not agree, if we do not agree on simple steps and simple measures, it would be really problematic, and everybody seemed to understand that we have to deploy understandable and easy measures. So I hope that during the Council we will agree on that. Thank you for your answer. And before giving the floor to the audience, just a quick comment from Professor. Thank you very much. I would like to mention two things. The first one is that during the energy crisis, we should take a wider approach, not only the European point of view, but the worldwide point of view, actually. I talked about the German subsidies of 200 million euro from the state budget, and no one is able to react to that. No other state has this budget and has this amount of money for subsidies. People do not realize that about 57% of subsidies in the EU are German subsidies for German enterprises, and a big part of this proportion are French subsidies for French companies. The rest of the subsidies do not exceed 1%. And this is something that is part of the single market. When I asked you to use a wider point of view, not only the European one, I would like to remind you that on the 18th of November last year, the American Congress adopted a project for the Tri-Sea and support for Ukraine and Moldova. It was a support for the LNG market. But current situation changes every day. And as we've seen, Russian gas has been cut off. Iran doesn't have their production capacities back, so they might not be able to enter the world market. Then we can mention the situation in Venezuela, North Africa, and so on. There is not too much gas in the world. The Americans doesn't have to be in the European market, so we have to use our diplomacy to convince them to take part in our region. We have to take part in military infrastructures, but with American investments, we would get American defense, so American protection, so it might be really beneficial for us. But now we have to take specific actions, specific protection. I'm talking about the Baltic pipeline. And I would like to have a remark to this topic. Remember that the V4 group is the biggest importer of goods in Europe. It is 600. It is a higher market than Russia by 600%. I'm sure that everybody wants to defend their own interests, but European markets are really important. No one has chosen Russia as their interest. So there are things that are more important, there are regions that are more important. There are safer regions and better markets. Russia has 140 million inhabitants and the Czech Republic only 10 million inhabitants, but the Czech market and the Central European market is safer, stable, and very reliable. The V4 group region is the most stable market. It is the biggest market of the EU, and we should really consider that. Thank you very much. Mr. Berger, just a short reaction. I would like to comment on Mr. Bartuška's comment in terms of unfair markets and non-market principles and a capping of prices. We should discuss all the steps that will be taken in the future. Thank you very much. Comment from the audience, Mr. Vondra. I don't really have a question, just a comment. Professor Żurawski warned us that Putin could attack the Zaporozhye power plant to threaten Russia and to threaten Europe and prevent Europe from nuclear renaissance. It reminded me of the situation when the Czech Republic constructed some parts of the Temelin power plant. We had to make an agreement with Austria and Germany. And at one point, Germany started to think about questioning the construction of Temelin. And back then, our ambassador in Germany negotiated with them. He said we might. The German party said we might stop the construction, but our ambassador said it would never happen because it was our weapon. Against who? Well, against you, against Germany. Everybody was really surprised. They asked him to explain it, and he said, well, yeah, it was our threat because you would never attack us because it would turn against you. And this is not a joke, this really happened. And then no one questioned our nuclear power plant construction. So yes, Putin's threat might be a thing because he's not a rational player anymore.
There is another story Dana Drabová said, and that's that the Czech Republic is not the first one that is going to use our Temelin power plant as an attack for Germany and Austria. All right, thank you so much. And Professor, there is another question. Yes, I wanted to talk about some data concerning the public aids. In the last 7 months, the European Commission, as my colleague said, has given an agreement to give an aid of 440 billion euros. 52% is for Germany, 37% towards France, and only 11% goes towards other countries. Now, it is a question whether the European Commission is acting as an organ that guards impartiality and balance. And I have a question for Mr. Bartuška. Is there a chance of capping the gas prices in Europe on import? Not only the pipelines, but in other ways as well? So the floor is Mr. Bartuška's. Thank you so much for the concrete numbers, but it is also a reality that some of the countries do not bother with dealing with the European aid. We see help and aid in two ways. It's either European or quick, and we decide to take the quick help and not the European one. And I think that your delegation, as well as the German delegation during the informal meeting of the Council, is very important. But I think that the capping of energy prices and gas prices is the most important issue. And we are too weak to negotiate with our importers like Qatar or Algeria. We do not have the upper hand. We have to cap the prices next year after we get through this cruel winter. Russia has large amounts of coal they can burn, and they can survive many, many winters. But we do not have that. And we have to be firm in negotiating with our partners. And I'm not only talking about Russia, Qatar, and Algeria, but I'm also talking about the United States, who seem like a friendly partner, but we have to be firm with them as well. They are countries that do not have any emotional attachments in Europe. Qatar, Mozambique, Nigeria, Trinidad. Europe is not the most favorite continent in the world. We have to realize that. The capping has to happen at our cost. And we are going to do that in the spring after we survive this crucial winter. Thank you, Mr. Bartuška, and I hope that the negotiations are going to be as firm as your explanation, because it is very important. Hello, I have a question for Mr. Bartuška and a little something for Mr. Berger. Mr. Bartuška, we have talked about the resources of shale gas. Is it something that is still a reality and we could use that? We are not talking about shale gas, it is natural gas. And Israel exports it from one part, and it uses one part itself. And Mr. Berger, you were talking about doubts of our citizens about nuclear energy. Do you think that the Polish government should talk to travel agencies to promote voyages to Normandy? There are many, many little tiny nuclear plants, and the French aren't afraid of them at all. Thank you so much. We can share this idea. There is another question. It is the last question because we have a third panel. I don't know if it works. Yes, it does. I'm from Respect, and I want to ask, one of the biggest alternative importers of gas is Norway. Norway is using a new pipeline since the beginning of this month. Are the negotiations about gas with Norway an inspiration for the Czech Republic? I know that Norway has come to an agreement with Poland for a 10-year-old contract. Do you think that it is possible to do such a thing for the Czech-Norway coalition as well, or are we more favorable towards a pan-European solution? Thank you so much. I thank you for the question, and I want to hear quick answers from the Polish as well as the Czech side. Norway is, of course, present at the informal meeting of the Council, and Norway is increasing its export towards Europe in the realm of solidarity. They are minimizing their repairs in order to be able to increase their export, but they are only increasing it by 4 to 5%, so it's not a big increase. But they are very good negotiators, and they are tough negotiators. We can say that contracts with not only Norway but also the Netherlands are on the way, but Poland is not responsible for the infrastructure. But the infrastructure should be increased, or rather the capacity should be increased when it comes to the export towards the Czech Republic. And I think we are going to hear more about that in the near future. We are going to talk more about LNG and other alternative solutions. Thank you. Thank you so much. But we have one last question from a lady in the back. My name is Zuzanna Bajtrova. I'm from The Reporter magazine. I want to ask about Stork 2 negotiations. We heard that there isn't going to be enough gas in Poland for this pipeline, but recently there were talks in Poland about sharing the capacity in their terminal in Gdańsk. I wanted to ask, maybe it is a question too early, but what could a cooperation in this area look like? What would be the role of the Czechs in this cooperation? Would a Polish society rent some sort of capacity to us, or are we going to sign a contract with polské górnictwo, naftové gazownictwo that would provide us with the gas? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this question, and this question is an offer for me, and I will give this offer for cooperation to the Polish company. I think it is crucial to create infrastructures that facilitate the transport of gas. We have contractors that are able to secure twice as much gas as Poland needs, and I would love for Poland to cooperate with the Czech Republic and Slovakia. We could come back to the project Stork 2, and Poland could become some sort of hub on the commercial level. I don't know if it's my place to talk, but I think we should come back to the commercial negotiations, and when it comes to the talks about ports, we could be able to come to a conclusion that would provide gas for only a part of the year. And a quick reaction as a last remark. We wouldn't want to beg Russians, and we wouldn't want to beg Poland on our knees either. We are dealing with Belgium, France, Italy, Poland. We are not putting all our eggs into one basket. Thank you so much for the fruitful debate. Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding our second panel, Mr. Žuravský wanted me to give him the last ultimate word, talking about Kaliningrad, Králové. Before I talk about any jokes, one last question. Poland has political ambitions to become an active player when it comes to gas distribution. There is a declaration between Poland, Ukraine, and the US from 2019 from Poland to the interconnector, and it is one of the key areas that the Polish politics are now focusing on. But I don't want to talk about the political aspects here, but the political will is here. We want to be a major distributor of gas when it comes to the Tri-Sea area. But I wanted to talk because I wanted to tell you some jokes. But I also want to thank my childhood memories when it comes to annexation of Kaliningrad to the Czech Republic. I've seen many memes where there are Czech cartoons, Rumcajs and Manka shooting in Kaliningrad, but I remember from this fairy tale that there was an army in that fairy tale, and I thought that it was hilarious when I was a child. I really loved that fairy tale because it showed me that soldiers could relax. But I want to pay my respects to all the authors of this fairy tale. I have come to know that the fairy tale was actually very accurate. So I think that the graphic designers deserve all my respect because Rumcajs and Manka are very historically accurate. Thank you so much, Professor, for this fascinating conclusion. And I think that it is a very positive note to end on. And I thank all the other panelists. Mr. Gurfirst, when I hear all these ideas about how Poland is on our side when it comes to Kaliningrad, I think that when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a Tri-Sea area in their hands, I think that it could be an important infrastructure project in Czech-Polish cooperation. Yeah, I think that this is an idea that is beneficial for everybody. Thank you to all our panelists and all our guests.